travel may never be the same again. For a start, you're going to be wearing a mask, and so is everybody else on the plane as well. But would you pay to have that empty seat beside you on the plane, just to be on the safe side? And will ticket prices now rocket so high that only the very wealthy will be able to afford them? Will budget airlines all go bust so there'll be no more cheap weekends to neighboring countries? Join me in a conversation with the Director General of the IATA, which represents the bulk of all the airlines in the world, to get some answers. Director General, welcome to In Conversation.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's very nice of you to talk to us from Geneva.
We are, as many countries on this planet, where Switzerland has been in lockdown, progressively lifted now. We are starting to come back to normal, and we hope that it will be the same for the air traffic.
Yes. But the interesting thing is that IATA actually wanted to have a coordinated opening up of the skies, but nobody seems to have agreed to that. Everything's pretty ad hoc.
I would say things differently. What we have said is that we should have a coordinated but phased approach. So starting with domestic markets, then regional markets, regional meaning, Asia Pacific or Europe or North America, and then intercontinental market. So there is a strong will coming from states to organize something that is collaborative and cooperative. So I'm more optimistic than you are, but we are at the beginning. The reason why we don't see the concrete output yet, but it will come in the coming weeks.
In the coming weeks. So in other words, we're going to hear about what sort of plans there are in the next few weeks?
Yes, I think, that we will see in the next few weeks, states coordinating themselves and accepting a progressive restart of the air traffic in various parts of the world. In the phased approach, I have underlined.
The ultimate goal must obviously be intercontinental, because that's what, of course, most people would think of as being really open skies. When do you think intercontinental travel is going to be on the cards?
But what we have in our phased approach, we think that domestic should start to reopen by the end of second quarter 2020. Regional should also start to reopen by the third quarter, and intercontinental by the fourth quarter of 2020.
So by the end of this year, I should be able to come and see you in Geneva, or you should be able to come here to Singapore?
It should be possible. The point is that the level of traffic at the end of 2020 should be between 50 to 60% of what it was in 2019. So it will still remain pretty weak, but should be reopened.
What is it going to look like when I go to the airport? Can you walk me through what's going to have to happen?
Yes, I can walk you through. These measures are under discussion within the framework of the International Civil Aviation Organization, with WHO, with key governments, that are participating and contributing. So what I'm going to tell you is not yet applicable, but it is something that could look like what we are going to.
Could look like. That's good enough.
Yes. So probably there will be a health declaration when you arrive at the airport, hopefully on an app, if it's possible. Temperature control at the entrance of the terminal.
Will I have to show that I've had a COVID-19 test, that I've tested negative?
No.
No.
No, but, because for a simple reason, we have that in mind. But for the moment, if we need to test all passengers. There is not enough tests. They are not reliable enough and fast enough. So for the moment, the testing system is not ready to cope with the flow of passengers at this stage. It will be mandatory to wear a mask in the airport, in the terminal, and on board. Then we are discussing about the opportunity to have a lighter cabin luggage. Lighter, I mean, not too many, not more than one, to simplify the embarking and disembarking processes. For the food, we are looking at, pre-packaging the food, distributing a prepackaged food. So if we successfully implement these type of measures, we are able to fly with a very safe and robust health control system that is minimizing the risk of being contaminated or of importing a new infection from country A to country B.
Days of the budget airline over? Will we not be flying on budget airlines ever again?
I don't think so. I think we will. The future for budget airlines or low-cost airlines is still bright. The situation you are living in Asia is similar to Europe. Huh? You were mentioning that I live in Geneva. In Geneva, 48% of the traffic of the airport is done by one low-cost airline. So it's critical also in other parts of the world than Asia. And the point is that in some areas, the low-cost airlines are weaker, but in some areas they are stronger financially speaking. In Europe, the low-cost sector is strong, financially speaking. In Asia, the low-cost sector is a bit weaker. So the consequences could
Air
be...
Asia would not be considered to be in a very happy position at the moment. Air Asia is really struggling.
Yeah. So we know that in Asia, the low-cost sector is weaker than it is in Europe, for instance. So the consequences.
So no more budget airlines here in Air Asia. No more cheap flights.
No. You will have you see, because the other point which is interesting in our industry, it's a dynamic industry. You have a lot of newcomers, especially in the low-cost area. So if some low-cost disappear in some part of the world, if some there will be new ones. You will see newcomers coming because the market will be there. The point is that there is a very strong demand to fly at a reasonable price, and that is typically the market which is properly addressed by the low cost.
But will low-cost airlines be able to take on all these additional costs that will come with all the additional security and cleaning measures? If you have to keep cleaning so aggressively, if you have to have so many check-in procedures, typically, in fact, that's where low-cost airlines tend to be very, stringent about their cost control. So if they have to put all of these things in because the civil aviation authorities and IATA recommend such things, isn't that going to be really difficult for them to, put it bluntly, lift off the ground again?
It's a very good remark. Huh? But what we are proposing is something that is applicable to all airlines and that will not add a substantial additional cost. So the health and sanitary control process is, first of all, is not adding too many costs, and a part of these costs is not under the shouldn't be borne by airlines. We will share that with other industry partners or with governments. And secondly, you took the example of the cleaning or disinfection of aircraft. The processes we have issued doesn't, extend the turnaround time in a way that is incompatible with the low-cost models.
So in a couple of months, will I be able to take a flight from Singapore to Kuala Lumpur for $100 the way it used to be?
I hope you will. It's reasonable, and to think that it will be possible. Not 100% sure, but should be possible.
What about the flights that have been cancelled over these past few months? The ASEAN Travel Association, they have been arguing that it should not be vouchers, there should be outright refunds, because a voucher really doesn't benefit anybody if an airline has gone bust. So what does IATA think of that?
We are advocating in favor of refundable vouchers, because we have the issue everywhere. So
what is a refundable voucher?
Hello. What we have said is, first of all, passengers should accept for their unflown ticket a voucher that would give them the same right to fly for the same distance, a comparable flight, in a time frame which should go up to between 12 to 15 months, and could be used when the passenger wants to fly and when the flight will resume. Secondly, at a time in which we were under a cash drain that was impossible, to cope with, just impossible, except going to bankruptcy, we said that we could accept a voucher that would be refundable, not immediately, but in 9 to 12 months. So in a period of time in which
but that's still a voucher, Director General. It's only refundable with that particular airline. Am I correct in understanding that? It is not something that I can take and go to another airline and say I'm going to be able to cash it in there and take another flight.
But that's something we are looking at, if it's possible or not. That is something interesting. It raises
that is a possibility, that you would be able to transfer it.
Yeah, but that's the point, which is complicated, is how we are going to transfer. Are we sure that the airlines will offer the same type of advantage of flight than the initial one? So that's, it raises some tricky issues.
Director General, you have said that you think that the airline industry is in free fall and that you haven't hit the bottom yet. That was a few weeks ago. Do you still think that now?
I think we have hit the bottom now. I'm not sure that we are on the recovery mode, but we have hit the bottom.
But are you being too pessimistic? If we look again at China, May 1st, they opened up not the skies, but at least they allowed a lot of people to go on their Labor Day holidays. And in fact, the travel numbers were tremendous and the visits to various tourist sites were really, really good. So are you being too pessimistic with your idea that people are not going to be coming back to air travel so fast? Could we not see a very sharp V recovery?
I would love to be too pessimistic. I would dream to be too pessimistic and to see a strong recovery. The point is that in China, you are right to mention that starting the 1st of May, we have seen a lot of travelers coming back on our flights. But the weeks before, the recovery was slow, and the recovery started before the 1st of May. So that was also a reason why we were looking at that very carefully to see how China could pave the way. And the optimistic part has come more recently than the let's say the slower one. We have seen also examples in other Asian countries of strong demand for religious weekend or time out, and frankly, it was pretty optimistic. In other parts of the world, things are more mitigated. So it explains why we can be cautious. What we said is that we should catch up with historical trends by 2022, 2023, something around there. But if it's earlier, I would be the happiest guy on the planet. Huh?
But Director General, what about safe distancing? Because you won't be able to safe distance on a plane unless you have some empty seats around you. And there have been various suggestions about what possibilities there are. Either that the civil aviation authorities mandate there have to be empty seats, or in some cases, there are airlines who are suggesting that you can buy the seat beside you. Not at a full price, perhaps, but at a more limited price.
First of all, our preliminary studies show that the risk of contamination on board is very, very low. And these studies were made when there was no special equipment requested, so no mandatory masks that were requested from passengers. So even without masks, the contamination on board has been, we have studied the risk of contamination, and it is very low. When I say very low, it's a handful, huh? On thousands and hundreds of thousands of passengers. If you add a process in which you have a multi-layer check and control with temperature control, the mandatory wear of masks, a health declaration, you reduce the risk to something which is absolutely minimal, the risk of contamination on board. From the airline point of view and the passenger point of view, financial and economic, almost unbearable, because if we neutralize the middle seat in a short-haul aircraft, we have either not to fly, we cannot fly at the current prices, or we have to increase the prices, the fares, by at least 50%. That is something, that's an enormous number.
So does that mean that ticket prices would have to go up if we wanted to have that empty seat, that empty middle seat?
That's for sure. And I can tell you that the fare increase in that case would be between 50% on short-haul aircraft up to 60 and 100% on long-haul or regional aircraft. So it's very, very significant.
But that seems in contradiction, Director General, with what's happening in most of our societies. We're being told that we should stay at least 1 meter apart from the next person, that we should wear the mask, but you definitely don't want to be in close proximity with people, and you want to be in a well-ventilated place. There is, unfortunately, no breeze on a plane, and you're on a plane for up to 12 hours.
Yes, but if I may, first of all, you are requested to do that without having been controlled immediately before with a multi-layer approach, temperature control, health declaration, mandatory wear of mask, first of all. Secondly, in an aircraft, you must know that the ventilation and air conditioning system, it goes from the top to the floor. It is not circulating horizontally. So we have demonstrated several times that the contamination cannot be done through the air conditioning or the airflow system. Additionally, the air is filtered with very high protective filters for virus, by the way, and comes from the outside for a part of it. So minus 50 degrees Celsius. So in that temperature, you have no virus. So the ventilation and the air conditioning of an aircraft is not, and on the contrary, is a protective system from contamination. There is no risk of being contaminated through this ventilation system. Secondly, the way you are seated, you are facing the back of a seat. If you face the back of a seat, the risk to contaminate someone with droplets, which is the main risk, as you know, is limited. It would be different if passengers were facing each other.
So if you could say something to an Asian viewer who says, I'd like to fly, but I'm not so sure because I don't want to get sick. What would the very simple 2 sentences that you'd say to this traveler be about why flying on a plane, it's okay to get on that plane again?
Fly has always been the safest transportation mean by far. It will remain the safest transportation mean, even from including the health point of view. So do not worry, take a flight. We do everything possible to keep you safe. It's our top priority. And enjoy this fantastic freedom to fly wherever you want, whenever you want, at a reasonable price.
Director General, what do you think is going to be your next flight?
That's a very good, that's probably in Europe, because it will be open, earlier, or in Canada, or in Asia. Still, still waiting for government decision to open, borders and lift the restrictions, particularly the quarantine, which is the big deterrent for flights.
But you hope to be flying soon.
Oh, sure. I hope. I miss flying.
Director General, thank you very much for being on In Conversation. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you very much, madam.